Good evening, everyone. We will do the refuge and the prayers on page 9 and 10 before the teachings. In the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, I take refuge until I reach by the meritless and teaching, I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. May all living beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all living beings be free from sorrow and the cause of sorrow. May all living beings not be separate from the bliss that is solace. May all living beings live attachment and hatred towards one's living with equanimity. May all living beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May all living beings be free from sorrow and the cause of sorrow. May all living beings not be separated from the bliss that is solace. May all living beings leave attachment and hatred towards near ones afar by living with equanimity. Jamje namje zambada loye jera jera chejo domo debaye jegyangolo gordozo in accordance with the predisposition and intelligence of the angel. We request to turn the Dharma well of greater lesson in common with you. Jende jeje jera zeje dalo demo mambara zone kada denje shonlo dobaye loje baba na zadu. With brilliance, your wisdom, or compassion, one, illumine the darkness, ignorance, and closing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and texts that explain them. So now we first do these prayers for the cultivation of bodhicitta before we move on the teachings. O fully enlightened, blessed ones, Buddhas dwelling in the 10 directions, Bodhisattvas, the great Buddhists, abiding in the 10 stages, the great Vajra holder Gurus, pay attention to me. Anja Ganya Buddha, go for refuge in Buddha. Azadama Zanga Bodhisattva Esambe Ababare Azave Vajamere Zatrida Veda Hene Dejme Foda Segobi Ezo Sugada Zoba Geraj Bodhisattva the Bodhisattva praise enrich stages in echo. For the sake of it, I am breath bodhicitta. Also learn to live by the precepts stages in echo. O fully enlightened, blessed one, Buddhas dwelling the 10 directions, Bodhisattvas, the great Bodhisattvas, abide in the 10 stages, and great Vajra holy gurus, please pay attention to me. And again in Buddha, go for refuge in Buddha. Asadama Sangha Bodhisattva Asambe Ava Bodhi Asave Vajamere Zatrita Veda Hene Judgment for the sake of it. As Sukata Soba Gera to Bodhicitta Then Bodhisattva present for the sake of it. I am breath Bodhicitta. Also learn to live by the precepts in echo. O fully enlightened, blessed one, Buddhas dwelling in the 10 directions. Bodhisattvas and great Bodhisattvas abiding in the 10 stages and great Vajra holy gurus, please pay attention to me. And again in Buddha, go for refuge in Buddha. Also Sangha Bodhisattva Sambe Ava Soba Vajamere Zatrita without any judgment for the sake of it. As also Gata Sopa Gera to Bodhicitta Learn Bodhisattva praise and transcends in echo. For the sake of it, I am breath Bodhicitta. Also learn to live by the precepts in echo. Na Hare Lago Photo for Hego human life. Ponere Soda Buddha Bika in the Buddha. Avrona Oko Holegas Odere. The fullest mendicants will be now polluted. And the front door guide or refuge to the inward beings as my gift. To the dead who got the sage, may the gods of the Megorija, may the excellent Bodhicitta, Chepa no Yatanso, where has been permitted and greatly without degeneration. May I never Bodhicitta engage in Bodhisattva conduct. Be guided Bodhicitta, may I renounce all the evil. In the heart of Bodhisattva, my intent to have a be. What I wishes of the Lord, may all sentient being attendant. May all be possess happiness, may the desire of the Lord. Bodhisattva abide in the state, fulfill all prayers and wishes. May the servant of Paramita ever never Bodhicitta. May our obscuration and misery become in purity. In the spiritual energy that relieves the anguish of beings in misery and places depressed beings in eternal joy, I lift up my heart and rejoice. In the goodness producing illumination, I lift up my heart and rejoice. I rejoice in the beings who have gained eternal liberation from suffering, and I rejoice in those attained to Buddhahood, as well as their offspring, the noble Bodhisattvas. In the ocean-like virtues of body-mind that brings to joy the beings, and all accomplishing the well-being of others, I lift up my heart and rejoice. To the Buddhas of the 10 directions, I join my hands in respect. Let it blaze the light of Dharma, truth, for the beings lost in darkness. To the Buddhas considering parinirvana, I join my hands in prayer. Do not abandon the beings in sorrow, but remain to teach for countless ages. May the spiritual energy thus generated by the devotion to the Guru ones be dedicated to dispelling the misery of living beings without exception. As long as disease afflicts living beings, may I be the doctor, the medicine, also the nurse who restores them to health. May I fall as a rain to increase the harvest that must feed living beings, and in ages dire famine, may I myself serve as food and drink. May I be unending treasury for those desperate and forlorn. May I manifest what they require and wish to have near them. My body, every possession, and all goodness, past, present, and future, without remorse I dedicate to the well-being of the world. Suffering is transcended by total surrender, and the mind attends to nirvana. As one day all must be given up, why not dedicate now to universal happiness? My bodily powers I dedicate to the well-being of all that lives. Should anyone wish to kill, abuse, or beat me, the responsibility is there. Should anyone wish to ridicule me and make me the object of jest and scorn, why should I possibly care if I have dedicated myself to others? Let them do as they wish with me, so long as it does not harm them. May no one denounce them, have an insignificant contact. Regardless of whether those whom I meet respond towards me with anger or faith, may the mere act of meeting contribute to fulfillment of their wish. And all the forms of abuse that anyone wishes direct towards me, act as the cause of their enlightenment. May I be the protector, the helper, the guide to those traveling the path, both those wishing to cross river or a ridge or a. May I be land for those requiring it, land for those in darkness. May I be a home and homeless, a servant for the world. In order to fulfill the needs of beings, may I be magic gem, an inexhaustible vase, a magic spell, cure-all medicine, wish-granting tree. May I act the mighty earth, or like the tree of the skies, to support and provide the space, whereby I and all others may grow. Until every being has reached nirvana's shores, may I serve only as a condition that encourages progress and joy. As does all previous Buddhas forgive rise to precious body-mind, just as then carefully follow the stages of Bodhisattva discipline. Likewise, for the sake of all sentient beings, do I now generate body-mind, and likewise will train myself in the discipline of a Bodhisattva, who out of wisdom have seized the supreme body-mind, praise, glorify, rejoicing, that I may grow to fulfillment. From today I reap the fruit of life, having well won the estate of man. Today I am born in the Buddha family, and now I am a child of the Buddhas. Thus in future I should make every effort to live in accord with the Bodhisattva's ways. Never should I act being ashamed to this noble flawless family. Like a blind man fumbling in the garbage happens to find a rare and precious gem, likewise I have discovered the jewel of the precious body-mind. Thus was found this precious ambrosia to dispel the load of death, destroy life, and exhaust with treasure able to cure the poverty of all sentient beings. It is the highest of medicine to quell the ills of the living being. It is a tree giving shade to those wandering in the path of life. It is a strong and mighty bridge by which beings can cross from misery. It is a moon to shine the mind, to clear away the pains of delusion. The body and mind's great radiant sun, to spell the darkness unknown. It is the very essence of butter gained from churning the miracle down. All the gas rose and rose, profound space, every substance joy. Here is the actual seed of true happiness, the veritable feast to satiate the world. Thus today, in the presence of all awakens, I invite every being to be the self-still, giving both immediate and lasting joy. May the gods and others rejoice. So, in the past sessions, we have completed the first two chapters of the Bodhisattva's way of life. First chapter is mainly encapsulating the benefit of, indescribable benefit of the altruistic mind. If one conceives it, if one stays present with it, and if one employs it in one's words and deeds and thoughts, it uplifts the heart to the height that nothing can equal. And hence the first chapter is mainly to inspire beings like us to make a mind to change our way of life from not so selfless to this amazing example of the Bodhisattvas. An example, a practice, a teaching that has lived and promoted by many great masters for many hundreds of years, and particularly through the writings of Shantideva. And then in the second chapter, he prepares the ground that in spite of how much inspired you are by bodhicitta, to give rise to bodhicitta, you must first create the causes for making one's mind conducive to hold bodhicitta. Like some elixirs cannot be held and kept in some vessels. Maybe for cold drinks or quick hot drink, maybe paper cups can hold. But to hold a good drinks, you don't pour in such things. Likewise, so you have to prepare our ground, and so therefore the second chapter, mainly traditionally called chapter on confession, largely focus on the first three limbs, the first three of the 7 limbs. And because limb of making confession is the main one, because if you don't confess the selfishness and all the demerits of it, because when you realize the merits of this bodhicitta, it naturally highlights the demerits of selfishness. And so to adopt the selflessness, to drop selfishness, that means one has to learn how to drop the selfishness, because our hands are occupied with that at the moment. Or it was. And so to free our hands from the preoccupation with the selfishness and all the wrongdoings of the past and habits of that, one needs to therefore cleanse and wash. So for that, it said, you first of all make offerings. And so the triple gem, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, are therefore, as a Bodhisattva practitioner, must be faithful devotee in the figurines of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and consecrated images or the shrines and imagined form in their place of dwelling or dedicated place of worship. They must go there and do the formal offerings to the triple gem. So making offerings, we talked about how the offering as much as you can becomes a first preliminary. And then as you make the offerings, you pay homage. And after you have pay homage, meaning showing the deep respect, how much really do you, how do you show the need that you are willing to uphold bodhicitta? To do that, we must totally surrender and give up all the other time and possessions we are totally preoccupied with. Those things like our body, our possessions, our time must be offered to the triple gem, so that we do not have a sense of my time, or since I have already given up it, I don't want to claim it back. So the idea of self and its possession, its physical body, its time is not left to be considered, because it has already been offered. So that was how to get rid of the selfishness, is try to have no self and its concerns left, just renounce. Monasticism requires a person to renounce possessions and titles and relationships and so on, in order to adopt the life of mendicant. For a bodhisattva, they must renounce selfishness. And in order to show the abdication of the selfishness, they must offer all the things they have to the triple gem. We actually give things in our everyday life, but we're only giving out of attachment, out of bias, and which becomes very poisoned giving, which wraps us even more to the samsara. So those impure givings only pulls us into the very fangs of the jaw, or fangs or the jaws of the monsters. And so every giving we give, it traps us more. But if we give ourselves to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so therefore the offering of our body, our wealth, our time, our energy, our afternoons, our weekends, our couple of hours here and there, we mustn't think it's some kind of sacrifice. It's a time. It's something that we don't want to give. We should have this amazing joy in giving our time and energy. Then there isn't the burnout. Then there isn't the feeling that I'm doing too much, others aren't doing, that kind of meanness, mean-spirited feeling where people feel unequal, or some doing too much, others are not. It becomes so mean-spirited. That's unbodhisattva way. So in order to work with fellow sentient beings, to be able to give time and effort very willingly, first we have to do that in the presence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas through devotion, so the making offerings, paying homage, and then the third limb was confession. So we concluded with the confession with the last chapter. So the second chapter is actually not just confession on its own. It constitutes two other limbs, limbs of paying homage and limbs of making offering, and then doing the confession. Now this third chapter is Pema Chodron calls the title Transcending Hesitation, which actually means upholding the bodhicitta. To uphold bodhicitta, you really have to have your mind set on it and no room for doubt or hesitation. Because people often think, I can't do bodhisattva, this is way too much, it sounds so good, but nobody does that, and how could I possibly do, So people have this, what they call, I don't know whether it's benefit of doubt or the demerit of doubts. They have the demerit of doubt, and they keep being. Tibetan word for doubt is being devoured by inner demon. We become devoured by the inner demon, which therefore hesitates you from doing any good. It put a bar from doing good. It resent the do good that you did, and become mean-spirited the good you did. So it's just totally very difficult to conceive bodhicitta. Why? Because heart is so low. Heart is so low, thinking of self. It's below sea level attitude. Our attitude is so low. So hence Pema Chodron uses, you will see, some of the verses that we read there are from this chapter, today's chapter. It's most of the bodhicitta prayer is from that third chapter. So she starts with this fourth limb, the limb of rejoicing. A limb of rejoicing, because you have to develop bodhicitta, you got to have inspiration, you got to have joy. You can't have this doubt and a big question mark on oneself and the objects of refuge and others. You should have pure, inspiring perception by which you are able to accept the bodhicitta unhesitatingly and by rejoicing. That's why he devoted the first chapter in order to inspire others. And if you have made offerings, paid homage, made confession of these three, then you will be able to rejoice. The reason people cannot rejoice is because they haven't adequately done the first three limbs. That's why prostration, making offerings, like in the Vajrayana tradition, when we talk of preliminaries, all the offerings is mandala offering. All the homage is just prostration and refuge. Prostration and refuge. And the confession is Vajrasattva. So it comes back always to Gondo practices, all the preliminary practices. Shantideva, of course, talks about the merits of these 7 limbs, but Vajrayana teachers later on realize how to practicalize these profound bodhisattva ideas into hands-on practices. So the preliminary Gondo practices are actually bodhisattva's way of life. How could it not be? Because it's also preliminary for Vajrayana practices. Mahayana is a necessary only motivation which makes you to practice Vajrayana. Why practice Vajrayana if you don't have Mahayana, bodhicitta? To practice bodhicitta, one must have refuge. If we don't have refuge, we don't have confidence in the path, let alone ourselves. We don't lift our heart. We just lower our heart, low as possible, making a lot of anger over small things, amplifying that, and then just giving no hope for resuscitation. So the bodhicitta is a resuscitation, It's just like being able to, being able to resuscitate somebody is just giving them a chance to breathe and come alive. Lots of people have lost their life already. They're just zombieing. They're just like a zombie. Actually, life, spirit, and motivations is not there because there's too many despair and sadness, and very few has helped them to regain their consciousness. So this chapter is about, after having done adequate prostration, making homage, paying offerings, doing confession. These are all the preliminaries there. That's why we do these practices on Wednesday night. We do the prostration, and we do the prostration refuge together 21 times. No, maybe 50 sometimes, 100 times, sometimes. This day we do about 50. And then we do the Bodhisattva, which is the purification, which is confession. Bodhisattva 21 times. And then only we do the avalokita. Because, if you have all the negativities, holding your mind, you can't raise your high up. You can't become avalokita. So then only we do the avalokita, which is the actual, becoming the Buddha of compassion and then radiating compassion. So here, the Bodhisattva's way of life and understanding of it, people read the Bodhisattva's way of life, maybe memorize it, but really when it comes to understanding of, they should formalize their practices, the preliminary practices, do them more intently. Then you can see how these things can fertilize our mind stream to have no hesitation. It's just like some grounds, no matter how much you sow, how much you water, it doesn't grow. The soil is eroded or something is missing in the soil. It hasn't been fertilized properly. So we need to do these preliminary practices. Now the fourth preliminary practice is rejoicing. The rejoicing is amazing limb, but it hasn't got a specific practice in the preliminary practice that is rejoicing, that really take into account rejoicing as a limb, I suppose I could say that precious human rebirth and listing the 18 wonderful characteristics that our life endows or more, and then appreciating them, identifying them, how rare they are, how resolute we are to make use of it, not let them go astray, that would be rejoicing. That really, precious human rebirth definitely makes people to feel inspired and rejoice and feel resolute. But of course, unless one thinks about that before the preliminary practice, people don't get to do a lot of rejoicing. So that's why it's a good idea for us when we do the preliminary practice, always sit there, feel thankful that we are safe and free, and have the Dharma, have the company, have the Sangha, and have the teachings, and have the opportunity to practice. If we just did that, and then we delight ourselves, and we find amazing. So here we will begin now tonight with the limb of rejoicing. Shantideva's verses as we go through, the first limb is, first rejoice, he rejoices in the virtues associated with the merit. Merit meaning the goodness. You have to think in terms of, what's left over in this chapter is the four of the seven limbs. Limb of rejoicing, and then limb of requesting the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, teachers for the Dharma to teach. You got to ask someone to teach. Some people don't want to ask to teach. So whatever, because somebody doesn't ask. Even though there are a lot of teachers, they can't teach. This is one of the Buddhist kind of. You can't teach unless you're asked to teach. It's just like you are not asked, requested. So asked to teach. And not only ask to teach, but ask them to remain in spite of difficulties, their health, their karma, or their life, whatever that is. Please ask them to live. Please continue. Please renew the contract. please stay. Please stay, live long. And we talk, please not pass away into nirvana, we call it traditionally. We're actually asking to teach. It's very, very important merit. If somebody doesn't ask, there is no merit for the teacher to teach. However eloquent words he is, his teaching has no benefit because he be
putting his ego into it without people's asking of it. Then he feel he need to do it because people ask, or ask to live long or do. So the asking to teach, asking to live long, and then dedication merit. These are the 4 last limbs, yeah? 4 last limbs. These 4 last limbs are mainly covered in this chapter, So the first is limb of rejoicing. Firstly, rejoicing in the merits, rejoicing in the virtues associated with merits. The merits are usually different from good karma. Gewa and sonam, we call it, merits. Virtues, deeds are good deeds by intent and by content and by conclusion. Your intent is good, the actual deed you did is good, and also you did it for the sake of others, so it's a virtue. But to make it to merit, one must completely dedicate it, Dedicated. So merit is only dedicated and giving the merit even for the others. So not keeping the merit for oneself. So that's why here we're talking about rejoicing in virtues, virtues that are meritorious virtues. So in these first verses, with joy I celebrate the virtue that relieves all beings. So here, Shantideva, he says he has a lot of joy to celebrate. He feel like calling a party, that this virtue or merit of the bodhicitta is such that it can relieve all sentient beings. Because there are other things you celebrate, people, small clubs, they're only interested in that delights them, but others just have no interest, doesn't delight them. But bodhicitta is worthy of celebrating because it relieves everyone who ever gets to know about it and maybe consider about it. So therefore he says that virtue that relieves all beings. Other virtues like soccer or things like entertainment, it's only delights those people and their supporters. And half of the stadium are not delighted by it. The bodhicitta is delights everyone. There is no our party and their party. There's no so everything else, from the sorrows of the states of loss, people sentient beings who suffer at this feeling of loss of whatever, faith or friendship or whatever. They usually feel there's such a sense of loss and worthlessness and uselessness of themselves. You will be able to lift your spirit up if you discover bodhicitta, no matter how many things you have lost, and places those who languish in the realm of bliss. So one lifts those beings from the sorrowful and woeful state of mind, and then the one who hears and understands bodhicitta, it just totally takes them to a space that people may call heaven, people may call bliss, people may call enlightenment. Even enlightenment is not a place, it's a thought. It's a thought, So therefore, when one gives rise to this thought, all your lowly situations becomes all transmuted. Look at the merit of it. We were talking before in the first chapter that once this alchemy type of gold transforming elixir touches every base metal, it turns into gold. Yeah. So that's right. No matter how low people used to feel hard done or defeated by, once they get the bodhicitta into their mind, it just totally lifts them, places them devoid of anguish. So this is rejoicing. So we need to rejoice. That's why reading of the bodhicitta prayer we just did is very good to put into your prayer, daily prayer. Just handwriting them or to print them small book or whatever from that, and then recite them regularly. That particular verses, or sometimes the chapter by chapter, and these are the particular those extracted one we just did. The first page and second page are actually people who do daily bodhicitta prayer. They do that. Some may do the 21 times. The first one, definitely do 3 times. The rest they do once. And why? You're reviewing rejoicing qualities. Like people do psalms and hymns, they rejoice the quality of God or Jesus or whatever. And they're all, you can see, they're all really happy. They're all well dressed, and they were really quite unhappy. But once they are in there singing psalms, they're all really a completely different person. So reciting the, reflecting, rejoicing bodhicitta and its merits lifts our spirit up. So it's good to give people to read such things, Second is rejoicing the virtues associated with the liberation. Liberation means it liberates from samsara. The joy that we were talking about, being really high and excited and up and very positive and very kind and generous, is only on this plane. But liberation is the next level. So the second verse is about liberation. It says, and rejoice in the virtue that creates the cause of gaining enlightened state. So the liberation from samsara and therefore enlightened. Here we're talking about not in a nirvana of cessation, we're talking about enlightenment, and celebrate the freedom won by living beings from the round of pain, And so you can see that this bodhicitta will not only lift the low, downtrodden, depressed, despairing mind, but actually can take them all out of the cycle of samsara and bring them and make them to reach the state of enlightenment itself. So one is actually conceiving, one is able to conceive the inconceivable by the potential, the huge benefit it offers, and then one is now rejoicing and celebrating, if you like, and sharing to other beings, informing others. If you say good things about bodhicitta, it makes all the people's sorrows kind of eliminated by the delightful, positive, optimistic outlook of the Bodhisattva's way of life. Bodhisattva don't see the hardships of theirs as a curse. They see the hardships as a good cause to suffer. For their suffering, they may become bridge, they may become a little stream, they may become a little hill if that is necessary. So, likewise, so that being the case, bodhisattvas dedicate their situation for the cause of liberating others. And then it goes to say verse number 3, and in the Buddhahood of the protectors I delight in the stages of the Buddha's offspring. So you are not only rejoicing the enlightenment of oneself, but the enlightenment that has already been achieved by the past Buddhas, like the Karkuchanda, Kanakamuni, Kashyapa, and Shakyamuni. Those are the 4 Buddhas of this eon. And as well as other Buddhas in the previous various other eons. And we delight. We definitely delight. Our very existence of this organization, of our friendship, is because we rejoice the enlightened activities of the Shakyamuni Buddha. Every now and then we just say, they are Tao Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni. So we just try to remember the healing quality the Buddha gave, how the ruthless, violent kings were tamed and become pacifist, and not waste any of his revenues anymore, turned all for the cause of peace and spread the Dharma. Not let any ink waste writing useless stuff, but all writing holy scriptures. Using every sharp tools, not just to make other art or other things, but to engrave the rocks to make the holy visual dharma that now become landmarks in the whole Asian subcontinent. So these are the blessings of the Buddha, the rejoicing quality of Buddha, and his offspring, the bodhisattvas, all the 6 immediate successors of the Buddha, starting with Mahakasyapa and Ananda, Shanavasin, Upagupta, Sudarshana, Krishna, and then these are all Theravadins. And then after that, the second century onwards, Nagarjuna, the 6 great ornaments, and two very excellent, and 17 Mahapanditas of India, and as well as 84 Mahasiddhas of India, before they made any impact on neighboring countries. How many individuals' life are worth recollecting by doing so, how much they change and transform their lives and lives of others. And indeed, these are all base metals that changed into gold. These were ruthless kings who killed their brothers and fathers, imprisoned their father and killed them. They all got tamed by the Dharma, and that shows that how the very bodhicitta, or the amazing teachings, lift the spirit and directed the resources for good causes. And the Tibet, once the Dharma reached to Tibet in the 7th century, Tibet was a very, very barbaric country. It bloodthirsty. They were really, really violent and aggressive. And for them to be able to kill was a great bravery. You are not man unless you kill somebody. People really barbarous. They were not easy kind of apt. They didn't have the aptitude for the Dharma. They kind of worshipped just kind of all kinds of weird spirits and invoked them in order to conquer the enemy and so on. Practice all kinds of weird spiritual, completely perverted spiritual practices. But when the Dharma came, when the Dharma came, it took a lot of, Tibetan had a lot of hesitation. It took 300 years to transcend Tibetan hesitation. once all the hesitation was transcended, and then, whole land was pacified by the Dharma. All the resources, all the intelligent mind, people, completely dedicated to Dharma. And it's because of the elixir of the bodhicitta touching those base metals that actually, therefore, are when we rejoice. Amazing transformation. Those people, like Milarepa, who killed 18 of relatives and their horses, and out of vindictiveness, just because he loved his mother and he honored his father, he wanted to revenge his uncle who swindled him and his mother. And looks like any modern thing to do, just, you got to do it, get it, do this, you'll get it all, that kind of temptation. He did all of that, whatever was available during his time, whether it's black magic or sorcery or weapon or whatever, he tried all of that. But it only made him to harm him more and more. Until he really met the Dharma, He was such a hated person, the whole villagers wouldn't look at him, wouldn't talk to him. They avoid him when he's coming. The house was all stoned by every neighbor because what kind of boy lived in the house. He was such a criminal, if you like. But when the Dharma truly touched him, it completely changed him into the saint, the undescribable, almost like second to Buddha only, that Tibetan Buddhism has produced. He's just an amazing example. There are just as many, but his is from amazing violence. It's amazing violence to others are very all recognized or put on throne and very, very sort of nicely, and from nicely to nice places. nice places. How enlightened they became, it's a bit everybody's guess. But how Milarepa, who was a just bloodthirsty man, who wouldn't hesitate practicing black magic to kill his uncle and aunt just for the little plot of land. And he was so driven. But when the Dharma truly heard him, Dharma, it completely changed him. This is what we're talking about, rejoicing the Dharma. Read the sutras, like they're recollecting the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. And then you read again and again. You memorize these. These are the meditation. Reading the sutras were the meditation. Chanting the sutras were the meditation. reflecting on them, not verbalizing, are the meditation. Meditation is when you're actually when you're thinking the topics. Chanting is when you're verbal making the thoughts of the Buddha, teachings of the Buddha. So that's why rejoicing the great beings, how they were transformed by the teachings of the Dharma. So these first four verses is about recollecting and rejoicing the virtues, merit, particularly liberation and liberated beings like Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and their heirs and their successors. And next is that is a rejoicing. And then the fifth one is requesting to turn the wheel of Dharma. This is covered only in one verse, verse number 5. It says, and verse number 4, just same topic. Intention, the ocean of great good that seeks to place all beings in the state of bliss, and every action for the benefit of all. Such is my delight and all my joy. So actually, some subsuming the benefit of the Dharma, and that has reached many people to reach Buddhahood, and that such a great intent. And then if this intent is placed into your heart, you must find a space in your heart where this intent will sit well. And then it will make the person feel in a blissful state. And everything you do, whether you do this or not do that, everything become meaningful. Everything you do, by virtue of the existence of the intent, will become meaningful. Will become meaningful. Tsongkhapa said something along this line. Sambhazana satan lamyang zang means if you have a noble intent, all the places and stages wherever you go will be good, identical to the intent. If the intent is evil, they say, sambhangena satan lamyangen means if the intent is ill will, then even though wherever you reach certain heights or places, it will be followed by bad things. Good things will not follow ill will. So therefore, one who has placed enshrined the bodhicitta into their heart, enshrine the bodhicitta in the heart, every action you do will have benefit to all. So that's why whether we can benefit others or not, so much is your technical knowledge or your speed or your accuracy or how many people you can rally or how many people you can agree. It's how good our bodhicitta is. And Shantideva says, such is my delight in all my joy. So then there isn't any job that you wouldn't do. They say, I don't like to do this. Could someone do this? I don't like cooking. Oh, I don't like mowing. I don't like doing, the people don't become selective when you have the bodhicitta. So you may be pretty hopeless in doing other things, but where there is a will, there is a way there God. Because the bodhicitta, it just makes the person so uncooperative person, they will learn and they will make very, very quick. So it's not so much of what we are good at, what we are not good at. Once we have the goodness of all good, when we have the best of all good, then you don't have to be talented, You don't have to be talented because that is the mother of all talents, So now, in order to, how do you get that? How do you get that culture? How do you get that culture? Only by getting the teachings. Yeah. So next volume is requesting to turn the wheel of Dharma, and Buddha himself, even fully enlightened, would not teach. He thought it would be presumptuous of him, to imposition of him to give teachings, unless he's requested. And therefore it became a Buddhist kind of etiquette not to teach unless requested. And particularly requested sometimes more than 3 times, or even more, still not teaching, just to show the reverence that teaching deserves. So it says, and so I join my hands and pray the Buddhas who reside in every quarter. I mean, every quarter usually it refers to all the 10 directions. And all the 10 direction refers to Buddhas are not just in one place. Some people think it's only in the West, Western paradise. Buddhas are in every direction, every place. And the reason for that is all the Buddhas have one intent, that is to touch and benefit sentient beings in all realms, wherever they are high or low or in middle, or whether they're extraterrestrial or subterranean or terrestrial, or all the 3 realms we can call it. Sometimes we call 3 realms. Sometimes we call 10 directions. So here, when it refers to every quarter, kindle now the Dharma's light. So he's talking about teach the Dharma, to teach the Dharma for those who grope, bewildered in the darkness of suffering. Yes, sentient beings are not don't have the vision of the Dharma. They are so capable of doing material things, but still they're groping. Instead of going towards the door near where they can get through, they are bumping their head through the walls. And if they get through that, they'll have sharp fall. They're groping. And so please, they need the lights. They need the torch. They're completely dumbfounded. Please teach the Dharma. So therefore, we need to create direct karma to teach the Dharma, to teach the Dharma. Whether it's organizing, or whether it's hosting, or whether it's doing things, or practically, physically doing things, or actually informing people, or telling about it, and offering them a course, or sponsoring them a course, or going with them even though you have done it yourself. And those sort of things could be really, in many ways, what we're making people to meet the actual torch of Dharma, because they are groping in the darkness and they don't have the torch, and they don't know that they lack the direction. They have no GPS. They are lost. so they need the most reliable sense of direction in life. And without the Dharma, they indeed are lost. They may change this, they may attain these, all superficial changes. They're just going more and more in the same circle, in vicious circle, unless they are themselves listening, themselves reading, themselves facilitating others to teach. They are actually supporting the teaching, and not kind of an occasional kind of duty, but incessant commitment. Incessant commitment, transcending hesitation. Remember, this is not just doing sometimes, then feel I did my deed, then I don't want to do it. Just continuously working for the benefit of people, meeting the vision of the Dharma. It's such an amazing thing to do, requesting to turn the will of Dharma. So, it's particularly where and place where the Dharma teaching is legal. Some places you'd ask to teach it, they're not meant to be taught, they'll be punished because you're not allowed to teach, like in some countries, like in Malaysia or Indonesia. If you teach, if you teach within the kind of Buddhist circles, it's okay, it's okay. But if you were seen teaching to the traditional Malays, or you will be imprisoned, There have been cases, So you can see there's a lot of oppositions, and not everybody want Dharma because they want to grope furthermore. They don't want to find a way. So a lot of obstacles, So we must not be intimidated by people due to their own defilements. They try to interfere, they try to obstruct, they try to, out of vendetta, they try to do. One should be feeling sorry and feel compassionate. Maybe we're not always skillful ourselves, but that should not change our agenda of promoting the Dharma or making the teachings available to others. And then the very fact that we meet such hindrances, like in Tibet, we have the Shantideva, who was invited all the way from India. He was waiting in Kathmandu whether he was fit, if Tibet was ready to welcome him or not. There were all these bonpos who were really trying to sabotage his visit. So they have to secretly bring him. They're here to do secret teachings. And then, all sorts of them weird stuff happen, But they have to do all sorts of things how to not hinder the actual propagation of the Dharma, People try to do that one of the queens of the king actually fell in love with the monk called Verachana. He was a very handsome monk, and she wanted to seduce him. But when she failed to seduce him, she actually blamed he tried to seduce her, and everybody believed that story. And the monk got totally sort of abducted, or expelled all the way to some eastern frontiers of Tibet, and not allowed to come for many years. Even that happened because somebody didn't get to fulfill their wishes. But those people who really knew it just allowed that space, and then slowly they brought him back. And when the right circumstances were created, then then the Dharma was allowed to propagate. So there are individuals who can completely try to hinder the propagation of the Dharma instead of practicing the sixth limb to make the teachings possible, which everybody needs. Some wants to blow the candle when their own little own defilements, where their own desire and craving and wrong views and selfishness not fulfilled. People will do that. We should not be discouraged, but instead would need to, not let the people stay in confusion, the darkness of suffering that themselves are inflicting. Due to the inadequacy of the knowledge of the Dharma, beings are often like that. So therefore, Dharma is to dispel ignorance, an act of ignorance. And so one must not be intimidated, be that supporters or whoever, so one must create. The reason there is a lack of bodhicitta and appreciation of it because people haven't heard the teaching. People haven't read the literatures. It hasn't been translated properly. It hasn't been published properly. It has not been communicated in proper languages. So every act that goes to make these things available are indirectly promoting the Dharma. Yeah, this is very what you call dear to the organization like ours. Objectives is to promote Dharma, which is actually to fulfill this requesting return of the will of Dharma, whether it's helping among our community to teach to the beginners or invite other teachers or creating new all these things are the spirit of turning the wheel, asking to turning the wheel of Dharma, but not saying that turning the wheel of Dharma is some person can turn the wheel of Dharma. It's not like that. The Dharma wheel has been already set on motion by the Buddha. So he doesn't have to have some original knowledge. He simply needs to propagate the teaching. So the teaching shouldn't be personalized, saying his teaching or her teaching or their teaching. His teaching is the Buddha's realization. We must see them as all conduit through which the teaching comes. The actual teaching is the Buddha's teaching, not think the teaching is the person and then I like his teaching, I don't like his teaching, that sort of thing. Then one forgot the teachings. So one must not worship people, but remember the Dharma. Rely on the Dharma, not the people, they say. That's if really we want a Dharma, If you really want a Dharma, then individuals, people's difficulties, we will be more cautious because it may jeopardize the Dharma. And so that how the vision of Dharma could be shared and reach to more people, because in the meantime, Dharma itself doesn't shine in the middle of the night. It has to come through the activity of the people. So therefore, we need to work, make it possible. And so that's the limb of requesting to return the will of Dharma. Requesting to return the will of Dharma eliminates our negligence of spirituality. Often we don't prioritize spirituality, enough because of the materialistic culture, more and more people turning away from spiritual practices, turning into materialism and technology. They are not with their practices as frequently as they should be. They're more with the most recent gadgets or material things to entertain themselves. They aren't actually to practice the Dharma. So that shows that how important it is to that neglecting and not prioritizing Dharma is a karmic problem or hindrance. So in order to really drop that habit and pick up the habit to practice Dharma, people need to prioritize the Dharma. So when we are organizing, say if you took a responsibility to organize something, propagate and host and meet and greet and help other people, we have lots of you do that all the time. Without that, the teacher alone cannot do that, or even the teaching itself cannot do that. So everybody's joint effort makes these teachings palpable in people's lives. And when these things are propagated and promoted, and then people meet the Dharma. And otherwise, people are always not free. They are always something else is more important. Of course, because doing the Dharma is not some kind of temporarily enticing to the deluded mind, and so, whereas everything else, such thing on, it's only on today, then it looks like you must not miss. As Dharma, it's always there every Tuesday night or every Monday. You can go anytime. But in the meantime, I'm not saying that it happens, but it's that is the problem of the spiritual neglect. Turning the wheel of Dharma is antidote for that. We need to be reasonable. Our Dharma brother Peter from up north, he says, Wednesday is my Dharma day. He do everything. He doesn't go to work on Wednesday, and then he reads the text, or he asks questions, or he practices, and he help others who need the Dharma. It's just like that, and make sure that is not compromised, always, and we try to make our little commitment here in this community too. Try to have those things, however many or few or there just. Even because not many we are going, because it is our own delight to do, rather than because there is somebody or not. We're not going for entertainment. We're not going for company. We're going for the feast. We're going for the Dharma. So therefore, requesting to turn the Dharma, that we actually love the Dharma. People and lots of people are blessed by Dharma. You can see that. We know so many brothers and sisters everywhere, different parts of the world. All of us, they're engaging in various supporting the activity of Dharma, requesting to turn the wheel of Dharma. Because when we request to someone else to turn the wheel of Dharma, then that person hears, that person hears, that person hears. Then the lamp lights another light. And then it is like bringing them to the Buddha. And then the sixth one is, in verse number 6, is requesting to turn the wheel of the Dharma is followed by the people who you request to are not easy to train and stay committed, stay dedicated. They have personal difficulties, and some of them cannot continue because of ill health, because of their karma, their personal things, setbacks. That setbacks completely threw them away. They're not able to do. For instance, if that happens, then you realize how difficult it is to find those who can do the Dharma work. So that's why beseeching not to pass away into nirvana. Verse number, I join my hands beseeching the enlightened ones who wish to pass beyond the bonds of sorrow, means bonds of sorrow, samsara. Do not leave us in ignorance. Remain among us for unnumbered ages. So requesting not to pass away. Asking the long life prayer in Tibetan Buddhism, this whole idea is that. But when we recite long life prayer, we shouldn't think we are asking long life prayer of that person individually. There seems to be a lot of personality, issue there. But even if we do only one long life prayer, we should think we offer this all the Dharma practitioners and upholders to live long and offer the prayer. And requesting of course, the Dharmakaya does not enter into nirvana. But Rupakaya does. The Rupakaya is the corporal body. The mortal body dies, The actual spirit of the Dharma mind does not die. But when the physical form does not exist, everybody cries and weeps and they're already afraid somebody may die, but they know they will die. So requesting to turn, not to pass away into nirvana in many ways is creating collective merit that of course someone will die, but that his or her legacy will be continued by appropriate people to carry the Dharma, because therefore there's continuity happens. Requesting not to pass away into nirvana, but unfortunately everybody has passed away, but their corporal body has died. But their legacy has continued. This is the amazing thing about it. See, the prayer is working. The life of the Buddha Dharma is strong and it kept. Because therefore there is the people, we've been adding oil in the lamp that was nearly going off. The lamp is still burning because we have been adding oil in our daily prayers. We are always doing that. So that's very important. It's not a personal thing. It's just how long the Dharma made it keep going. Like a vigil has been kept going. When did the whole national resources shifted to give to Dharma and train the lamas and practitioners, not into militaries and so forth? Yeah, when the 3 Dharma kings of Tibet came into 9th, 10th century, then Tibetan whole consciousness just completely changed the whole mind. Even King Ashoka in India, when he went to visit those holy places, he realized how neglected the Lumbini and all those places was. And even this is just like 100 years after Buddha's passing away. It seems like people forgot it very quickly. They didn't sort of maintain some places and as much as other places. Some places were so neglected, and he felt fearful that people may forget this is the place where Buddha was born. And he made a ruling to build this big pillar so that people don't forget. And after he came and make a big royal visit, build the pillar, and he just thought, how can I make sure that this pillar isn't getting broken down? And then he actually waived the tax for the local people and ask them to look after the place so that it will not be erased from the surface of the earth and it will be remembered, you see. That is the sort of, we're talking about, how individuals carry, even Buddha passed away, his place, history, his teachings, and were not lost. We still know all the names of his brothers, uncles, aunts, all the things. That's more than somebody else's brothers and sisters we know. We know the names, what they did, and so this kind of well-kept, preserved knowledge is because the requesting to not pass away nirvana and not see that as a legacy of one person, but continue work of the Dharma. And so this is what we're really talking about. The very aims and objectives of an organization like ours is to promote these very activities. And so this now brings us to the last of the 7 limbs, that is the limb of dedication. Dedication of limb of dedication is a little bit discussed elaborately. Dedication to pacify sufferings. Firstly, we dedicate the bodhicitta, not just for the sake of generation bodhicitta, but bodhicitta to pacify suffering. So the first verse on verse number 7 is to dedication to pacify all types of suffering. It says, and through these actions now performed, through these 6 limb practices, paying homage, making offerings, confession, rejoicing, requesting to turn the will of Dharma, and not passing away in nirvana. By these 6 activities, action now performed, by all the virtues I have amassed, I have just amassed, all the things I've just accumulated are just, may all the pains of every living being be wholly scattered and destroyed. So Shantideva dedicates the 6 limbs to as a high cause of alleviating sufferings of sentient beings, basically bringing the pacification of all the sufferings of sentient beings. And then the second verse number 8, he dedicates for the transforming one's body, so that our body become useful. So he may dedicate the verse number 8 for the purpose of dedicating one's body, but dedicating one's body for the benefit of all the sentient beings. But firstly, I think the dedication of pacifying suffering is covered by verse number 7. Furthermore, dedication of the one's body for the benefit of others is covered in verse number 8, so as to allay suffering of illness. So he's dedicating this verse for people who are ill. May this bodhicitta, may these 6 limbs we just practiced, may heal people. That's the level 1, At least may it people who are sick maybe get well by my doing this practice. Very realistic, And not saying enlightenment only. That I will only do the enlightenment thing, And it's not just small things, small works. So it goes to say, for all those ailing in the world, until every sickness has been healed, may I myself become for them the doctor, the nurse, the medicine itself. So this is the verse we read, not to mention the people who do these things, bring those things. If you're a nurse, or if you're a doctor, or if you're a carer, if you're kind of palliative volunteer carer for the day, once a month, you should feel that is the Bodhisattva's way of life. That, not just providing the service, but caringly, but very, very tender, very, very compassionately. Just see whether they are really receiving their well or not. Not just filling the time, not just ticking the boxes, just actually healing the illness, the feeling the neglect. Just feel that they are listened to, they are cared for, that their needs are heard and heeded too. This is very, very important, There's mere providing service there, but the caringly, actually with great kindness and great purposefulness. And here one is praying. But if one can do it, it's better than praying. So one is actually working as a nurse or carers or whatever. One should feel that is the fulfillment of the prayers that Shantideva wrote in verse 3.8. You are doing what he wrote, so he will be very happy. He said, I knew there was some good reason. I knew somebody will do what I wrote. So that's the verse number 3.8, pacify the suffering, illness of sentient beings. And next is to sufferings of hunger and thirst. Some people are hungry and thirst, so maybe for them you need to do to fulfill them by becoming food. He says, raining down a flood of food and drink may dispel the ills of thirst and famine. And in the ages marked by scarcity and want, may I myself appear in drink and sustenance. So Shantideva offers prayers that if there is a people who are hungry and thirsty, what's the point of giving them books? What's the point of giving them umbrellas? What's the point of giving them a free seat to call somebody else? Give them the food. That's what exactly they need. So it's talking about being realistic. May I be able to pacify small miseries. Not trying to think that I only do the big things. Some people say, shouldn't we give this because it's education or something? People are hungry, you want to give them education. First give them some food, then they might listen to you, then they might take some education. But if they're hungry, they're not interested in education. So there's quite a lot of first world people think in the third world country there's child labor is terrible or something like that. But actually the child labor is actually giving food to the family. On that level they are trying their best. Sure, we don't want anybody to enslave unfairly by anybody. That's good, very, very important point. But actually just totally idolizing, trying to make everybody have university degree, but most people who have university degrees are very uptight and very stressed by the time. More, I'm not saying all, because nature of the knowledge and responsibilities, they become very important and they become very stressed. People who are soft by bodhicitta, it's just quite a different thing, So we must not lose the value of tenderness and kindness on top of all the other things. So Shantideva says, if I'm meant to become food, may I become food. When I'm meant to become drink, may I become me. If I'm meant to be a mat, let them sit on me. So he pretend he's a cow or ox or something like that. If people sitting on him, he just pretend as a seat. Because that's all what people need. Sometimes people say, I'm doormatted. I mean, it's good to be doormat. Sometimes we are not good at all. So be useful doormat. At least that's the people in the room. People say that this language, doormat. Buddhist prayers, may I become a doormat. Yeah, it's really good stuff. And then at least you might have been useful for a change. That you haven't be an obstructionist. You'll be in the doormat. This is amazing how Shantideva sort of makes the prayers very humble, and not try to fix the world and be the rescuer, but just do the little things that get often forgotten. That's what the Bodhisattva's way of life is just do whatever needs to be done, not being picky and choosing, and not ever look which looks most important or whatever. Just whatever is meant to be done and need to be done. And that's exactly what he's talking. He's praying. He's dedicating all the 6 limbs, all the devotion to the Buddha, all the confession. For what? He says, if I don't do this, even you confess, you become so pure and important, is it? No. If you really confess all your misdeeds, then you should be the doormat, and you're very useful indeed. He's dedicating, because he knows that even you did confess your misdeeds, but then you become very righteous. You become very, very, judgment of other people. See, that's pseudo confession, pseudo morality. The real morality is like this: that if you have any good, that good becomes a cause of filling gaps where others won't do. Oh, there are many. There's not enough who can cover the ground. See, that's the real Bodhisattva's way of life. I'm sure this kind of teaching makes us every now and then really remember, this is exactly I should, step away and go in that. And next verse, he go to dedicate to pacify suffering of poverty. Poverty is such a thing. For sentient beings, poor and destitute, may become a treasure, ever plentiful, and lie before them closely in their reach, a varied source of all that they may need. His language is so beautiful. He says, whoever is poor and destitute, because they are so far away from where there are things. So he said, may I become near them. May I become not so in the wilderness. May I not become so far that people can't reach. That may I become conveniently available within their access, whatever is necessary, so as to to allay their destitution or poverty, and clothing, food, vehicle, or other necessity, whatever it is, whatever they need. May I be that. What's the point of being Bodhisattva if you can't feed a hungry? What's the point of being Bodhisattva if you can't clothe a person who's like that? So it's talking about really being able to give one's clothes, maybe being able to whatever one usually wouldn't even think of doing, because Bodhisattvas do what normal people wouldn't do. That's the whole thing. So what normal people wouldn't do, they'd say, "Oh, I booked a seat. It's my seat." That a Bodhisattva would straight away, you can have it. It's an amazing air of joy. All of a sudden, whole bus is filled with this. When somebody offers us so much joy, everybody's willing to give it. When somebody gives very funny, everybody get really, really uptight, and then becomes so miserable. Everybody becomes so miserable. If one does it, that's exactly what he's dedicating. That may I be the one who can just bring the spark. that people are about to forget and miss. And that's the Bodhisattva way of life. So these 10 verses up to 10 verses about Bodhisattva who have done the first 6 preliminaries, dedicate to pacify all the sufferings. Second, he dedicated to transform his own body for other people's benefit. Now, how many of us are willing to give our body? Of course, dedicating for the others, what we talked is one thing. So the verse number 11 goes to giving everything that we have to others. My body, thus all my goods besides, and all my merits gained and to be gained, I give them away, withholding nothing to bring about the benefit of beings. So almost see what is in one's possession, including one's body. A body is also not self, it's a possession. So therefore, that's a good attitude. When people think they are body, they're not willing to forego that. Then everything else the body needs is not forgoable. So then basically there's nothing you can let go because everything is one's own type of thing. When you can start to give the body and energy, it could be energy, could be a back, could be just the whatever the length of sweat and tear work you do, whatever you have to do, all of that you try to dedicate is giving everything to others. And because it will cause the enlightenment of all sentient beings, without exception, not reserving anything. He said, no, I will not give this for anyone. This everything becomes completely exchangeable if it can benefit others. If it can benefit others, there isn't anything. That's what Bodhisattva goes to give the body, remember? Hungry tigers feeding, and number of other terms. These are, in Buddhism, we call giving, great giving, great giving, and greater great giving. The 3 types of giving. So one who gives his own body is not just giving things you have extra or things you think others can use benefit, even though you like it, but they can benefit more. So those are just normal giving. Giving your body to alleviate the hunger of the hungry mother or something, that is called great giving. Dongwa Chenpo, great giving. So this is talking about the dedicating one's body for the sake of others. And then, so from here onwards, you can see now, some people think that this verse, this chapter moves into the chapter of generosity. You can see that sort of. You can see the teaching is all over the place, not just one. If you look at it, there is everything. So when you're dedicating, it's a form of giving, isn't it? Dedicating, giving could be material giving and emotional guidance giving, fearlessness they call it. A material giving for hunger and thirst, that's a giving of material things. Second is giving of protection, like emotionally comforting. Giving advice is emotional guidance. Counseling and all that kind of lifeline job people give is a form of giving of emotional guidance. And third is giving actual affection, support of love. Like parents, what parents give, what loved beings to give to each other, supposed to be the giving of love. But often that is completely mixed with poisons of attachment and control without the bodhicitta. So that's why it's not that giving lacks, it's to become giving that actually benefits the recipient is only so when bodhicitta is present. When bodhicitta is not present, even the giving is done to keep or get more. So that's where why Shantideva here uses all the 6 practices to dedicate so that you can give. So the giving you give is merited by the 6 first preliminary practices and has become part of the dedication. So dedication is not sort of treated as a last, as practice, but rather the giving. First paramita, generosity, of paramita of dana giving could be understood as elaboration of dedication, seventh limb, So you can make the mandala offering as a giving, but actually your dedication of marriage is even higher giving, higher giving in the sense for the purposes that you are going to dedicate for. And then second is how there's this dedication of transforming your body and other resources for the benefit of other is better than any other form of help you give to other beings. So this is captured in verse number 12. It says, Nirvana is attained by giving all. So it's talking about the merit of generosity. So the monks and the mendicants who practice renounce their life and comforts and conveniences and stay up late and practice early, wee hours of the night, so to call it, and that is because they give up comfort, they give up conveniences, they give up kind of comfort of sleep and long enjoyment, but instead they do that. So nirvana is attained by giving up all. Nirvana is object of my striving. So I'm aiming to attain nirvana. Everything therefore must be abandoned. Means giving up. Giving up is abandon doesn't mean that you waste what you don't like to go wasted. Meaning that what you're giving up is something that obstructs your progress, and you rather pass it on to someone else. And it is best to give it to others, because others who are hungry, there needs to be food. So instead of you having a big kind of wealth, amassing security, but make it translated to give to others where there is no. You just go and give that cause. And then you have abandoned to have a big, fat kind of super that you may never get to use it. I'm just using an Australian example here, because Canberra is such a big public service town where everybody's always talking about how much they have in super. So he says, must be abandoned. He says, must be abandoned means must be transferred. Best is to give to all the others. So give it to others, because it's better to give, because giving that is entrusting to the benefit of others timelessly, whereas giving or saving for one's own, it's only going to create problems and miseries and sufferings and worries and anxieties and conflicts and whatnot. It becomes incessant cause of strife and argument, even with the loved ones, those which you have directed to for miserable causes of samsara. Those which has been given for nirvana, for attainment of enlightenment, then giving for the sake of sentient beings, they call charity in the world. In some place they call dana. They say dana, or meritorious activities. Giving for the meritorious activities is then dedication. Then it's really truly dedicated. It will continue to. Today you go to India also. 2,600 years ago, various people who were just like you and me, someone sponsored the Buddha to build the Anathapindaka's park in Sravasti, or the Venuvana by the King Ajatasattu, and King Prasenajit in Sravasti. All of them offer different places for study and practice, as well as Nalanda University or Ajanta, Ellora. All this stone carving shows who did what and what they provide home for practitioners to come, and so on. So you can see they gave for the sentient being, therefore all sentient beings can see it. But those that were interested to the miserable families or individuals, and you never will see it. They probably killed each other over that. And so this is talking about how giving is better than keeping and what they call heirlooming. Heirlooming. And that's the verse number 12. The verse number 13 goes to how to give one's body in particular, like the Bodhisattva who can give the greater giving, which is their own body, what they can give. This body I have given up to serve the pleasure of all living beings. Let them kill and beat and slander it and to do to it whatever they desire. So that's why it's not so much that you suffer what they do to you, but it's not yours. When you don't have the sense of mine, then the hardships and pain that the body go through or whatever, and you don't have suffering when you haven't got attachment to it, even to your body. When the Buddha sat under the tree, it wasn't really proving to be any immediate use to anybody, So it looks like a bit of waste. But it wasn't a suffering for him either. But when his body is thought to be useful to somebody, then it becomes cause of conflicts. But because he has given it up, when he has given it up, he does not become cause of suffering, and no other become cause of suffering to his body, because his body is not kept by himself to something to preserve for his own pleasure. Because he didn't have attachment to it, then giving is not an inconvenience, it's a liberation. It's called joy of giving, and they call misery of keeping. So the option is pretty obvious, isn't it? I don't know why people want to keep. But most people, even when they give for the wrong reasons. So that's why there are 32 ways of giving wrongly, not just by material is itself wrong, but intent why they give, or reason on occasion for which they give, and they become thereful. So here, why one's give it's better to give one's body is because body is firstly is essenceless. Secondly, it's a gift of others anyway, your parents' gift. So it's a gift of a gift is given for the others is even more meaningful. And if it's essenceless, so it cannot be kept long to be of use to anybody. So therefore, it's essenceless. It's got a use by date. And so it should be utilized for the purpose it can best serve the temporal benefit. And hence, it is better to give. And then that under that very heading, giving why one's body should be given, the verse number 14 also goes to highlight the same point. And although they treat it like a toy, or make of it the butt of every mockery, my body has been given up to them. There's no use now to make so much of it. So the Shantideva decides to have no attachment to it. That's exactly Shakyamuni Buddha did. He says, even his skin and flesh just perish, become just bone, like the tree. He says, let that be so. There's amazing, the Sir Arnold, I think Arnold, somebody, English poet, wrote a book called Light of Asia. He read a lot of the Buddhist sutras, and he wrote beautiful poems, how the Shakyamuni Buddha contemplated how to remain in asceticism, even if his skin and flesh all perish, and that he rather do it for that high purposes than to protect this from wind and cold for nothing. And so the Shantideva here is very much echoing those Ashwagosha. There's Ashwagosha's Indian poet who was an anti-Buddhist scholar, very strong scholar, and later he couldn't believe. He was so intelligent. He knew, he meant to find Buddhism. He meant to discover Buddhism for himself, even though he was really opposing to it for a long period of time. Later, when he was put in a very awkward place, he read the books and he couldn't believe what he's reading. So most people haven't read the Dharma. That's the problem. They are not into the curriculum. They're not into the lending libraries. They're not into the because it hasn't been solved a million times. It's amazing, isn't it? So however we can make it possible for this literature, this Dharma text, to be widely circulated by hook or crook, it will go a long way to reach the many people Dharma. So therefore, it's talking about the dedicating how to give. And the next is making special vast aspiration. Now this is making very, very vast prayers to make one's life meaningful. And so let beings do to me whatever does not bring them injury. Whenever they catch a sight of me, let this not fail to bring them benefit. So every little trying you do is for the benefit of others. If that's what you are, let them have it. Let them rejoice by your dedicating it. And then he goes to aspire, to offer the aspiration that if those who see me entertain a thought of anger or devotion, may these states supply the cause whereby their good and wishes are fulfilled. So he's actually wishing that whatever way you can delight and bring a little bit of joy, may this become meaningful activities. For there are many, many meaningless activities. Just simply try to cause laughter. But actually, there's really nothing in the essence-wise. They say laughing is a medicine, but that's is medicine without substance. So actually, everybody laughing, but there wasn't anything worthwhile that is worth listening, thinking again. So if you can be a comedian, you can be a Dharma comedian. If you can be useful, I think that's what Shantideva was saying. If there's anything, if I can entertain other people, I think other people, let that be so. All those who slight me to my face, or do me any other evil, even if they blame or slander me, may they attain the fortune of enlightenment. So now you're not. Because your intent is bodhicitta, and it's not suiting to them personality, because they don't like the whole ideal of bodhicitta, and you think you're trying to benefit them. and so of course they'll think exactly opposite. But just because I'm going to have connection with them anyway, because I have good intent, So even if they do these things, may they become enlightenment. So it's only through sentient beings I'm going to have some use. Otherwise, I'm not going to be used anyway. So if that's what they're going to do, but by virtue of my intent, which is to benefit them, aspiration is them to benefit them, you just do whatever you have to do. So in Bodhisattva, sometimes you go against some kind of a conventional precepts even, if your intent is for the benefit of others. Majority have no such courage. Think they want to be in sort of respectable names and positions. They wanted to keep their worldly image. They don't have this. They don't know the value of intention. They need worldly fame, worldly respect, and spotless kind of reputation, and they think that's the only way to do. For them, it will be so. But Shantideva says, no. Even if people are completely ridiculing me, doing all sorts of things, he says, let that be the case, for I have my own hidden intent, hidden intent bodhicitta. I cannot be betrayed or discouraged or by these things. It's amazing. This is what bodhicitta is like armor. If you're not armored with bodhicitta, you become very easily abusable. You could be very, very vulnerable to fall into all sorts of places and disrepair. But when you have the armor by the bodhicitta, they land on you, but they don't penetrate you to discourage you. And that's exactly his praying. Even if they do these things, they do a mockery of me, they do blame me or criticize me or whatever it is, may that too become cause of enlightenment. For the very purpose is not to preserve ego, but to renounce cherishing. What's there for me to cherish my name if their coming connection to me is going to meet with the Dharma and reach enlightenment, which is the cause of my motivation, prayer anyway. So it doesn't really matter what they do to me. So let me be the doormat. Let me be the doormat. And so the whole idea of, they say that you never know. Bodhisattva will take form of various things that others would not even think of taking up as a job. And usually they call jobless because then they might have jobs, Because if they have jobs, they're too important to be doing all those things, So the vagrant, like Khyentse Wangpo, the German Khyentse Wangpo, he writes beautiful poem. He writes the vagrant. He says vagrant, jobless wanderer. So he calls that. Then he might sometimes be useful because he hasn't got any important to preserve his ego. So if he has to be a little stone to make people to ford the river stream, he will be that. At least they will stop wetting their shoes. So because he is not sitting in some high office and can't be bothered doing any of that. Because he's going to be a stone where he's not meant to be a stone. He's not meant to be a little rope. He's meant to be a rope. So he says, I don't care. I'm not preserving any of that. So long as this is his aspiration. This is the aspiration. And then verse number 18, to aspiring further, to fulfill every sentient being's wish. He says, may I be a guard for those who are protectorless, a guide for those who journey on the road, for those who wish to cross the water, and maybe a boat, a raft, and bridge. Exactly what we're saying. He says, what's the point of being so important somewhere else when you could helping somebody to cross the little in a stream and reach home and look after their young and so on. He says, that's a really, someone got to do those jobs. Those are not advertised. As in the job in Sydney Morning Herald, so those are taken by people who are very important, who got 15 pages of resume, so impressive. Bodhisattvas have to go and do those things. Bodhisattvas have to go and do those things that are not picked up or understood, recognized by people, that are forgotten by all the others. That seems to be so insignificant for other people to be doing. Oh, you can do it, type of thing. Why don't I do that? He says, then at least it will quell my ego, because I'm doing something need to be done, but not so important. What need to be done, that's what in the precept prayer says, what had to be done. Bodhisattva does what had to be done. It doesn't pick and choose. And then think that is too inappropriate or too hard or he's too important for that or whatever. I mean, this is what we're talking about, selflessness. And you see these people, you see that kind of people everywhere, really look at that. These are Shantideva's writing, but lots of people are doing it. So when we see them doing that, then we actually offer prayers that we may do that. But when we see other people do that, we rejoice, We should rejoice. And then, amazing, that whole camaraderie and the morale of individuals and others becomes so, by meeting Sangha, it's so inspiring. Because everybody's doing lots of things. We just have to believe that. We shouldn't think somebody is not doing why they are not around. They are doing certain things. We've got to believe that. One shouldn't think that I have to take a back seat. That's ridiculous. How could Bodhisattva take a back seat? Bodhisattva do other things that are forgotten. Still doing other things with the intent of staying very connected with everyone. So aspiration to fulfill the many wishes. And then he says, may I be an isle for those who yearn for landfall, and a lamp for those who long for light, those who need a resting place, a bed, and for all who need a servant, may I be their slave. May I be their wishing gem, wishing jewel, a vase of plenty, a word of power, and supreme healing. May I be the three of miracles for every being, the abundant cow. So it's talking about the milking the wishes of sentient, milking or giving fulfilling the wishes of sentient beings. All these verses goes all the way to verse number 22. Goes to fulfilling the wishes of all sentient beings. Bodhisattva generates wishes that they not only do them, but they do them repeatedly, not tiringly, tirelessly, repeatedly, like the earth and pervading elements, enduring thus as the sky itself endures, and for boundless multitude of living beings, may I be their ground and sustenance. So he says, may I be the earth, because the earth and sky is enduring, so why I should be so unenduring? Why should I be only a few hours or few months or few years when the sky and the earth and all these are constantly enduring and benefiting multitude of sentient beings? Maybe I'm too important. I should be soil, I should be rock, I should be trees, I should be sky. Then at least, I wouldn't be preserving this ego so much. I'll be that what actually endures and continue to benefit beings. So at least they will be used. People will say, my land. People say, oh, my rock. Otherwise, I'm not anything to anybody. And so what am I used to? I'm an obstruction from becoming anything useful to others. So if I become an earth or a mound of a earth or a piece of a log, at least it may provide some use. So Bodhisattva is very ingenious, trying to be very creative. How could I be useful? Because this centering of ego, preserving of ego is actually obstructing the use it is to even to self, let alone to others. So in order to adopt Bodhisattva's way of life, one has to renounce this self-preservation, this ego-centered consideration. I should actually go and renounce these. I should support all living beings. And then he goes to say, thus for everything that lives, as far as are the limits of sky, may I provide their livelihood and nourishment until they pass beyond the bonds of suffering. Shantideva makes the commitment. So this is the holding the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta holding is, you just say, look, whatever I have to do, I'll do. If I have to be the just inanimate object, and there is no soul, there is no ownership, there is no passport, there is no this, may I be just that. At least that will have some use. That somebody can put the jug on it. Somebody can put the shovel on it. Somebody can because when I'm my shoes, it's only my shoes. He says, if I can be a unowned inanimate object, at least everybody will see, oh, is this on anybody? No, okay, then I can sit on it. so Shantideva is imagining, if I'm not owned by ego, then I will be at least useful to others. Otherwise, I'm always trying to preserve my ego. So Shantideva makes this commitment to enter the Bodhisattva's path. Bodhisattva's path is you becoming useful to others, to serve others, not to preserve oneself. Totally different. Serve others is not preserving self. He begins with this strong steadfast and sustenance, so that he become. Because earth is always there. The rock is always there. You may sit on it for 3 hours with your heavy bottom, but then you leave it behind. Then the rock is sitting there. Next time, people may break and make a little step. See, it's got multitude use. So when it's unowned, it has multiple uses. It can take all kind of incarnations. No, this is not for that. Please leave it there. That's for my uncle. And that's it. Nobody can touch it. Nobody can use it. And then, see, it's completely soiled by ego. So Shantideva is just imagining how wonderful it would be to be unowned, inanimate object. And then at least, there you might help some indifferent sentient beings who have no bias, who will know how people to bias this way or that way, and anybody can just pitch the tent on. It's not written, trespasser will be persecuted. So if I'm just like unowned wild wilderness, that will be good. Then anybody can use it, and then that people don't have to feel they are trespassing anybody's land, and then at least they can really pitch the tent 2-3 days, no problem. They can all snow and no problem. Otherwise, they booked for 3 days, and by 12 o'clock they got to go. They got worried, So he says, this suffering of ownership, suffering of possessiveness, and then how they cease to benefit others, only start to create suffering and try to create divisions. And all of a sudden it's a problem. It's not a resource. It becomes source of misery. And that's when it's owned and tainted by ownership and craving and not sharing and giving. So Shantideva offers his prayerful, and sometimes later in some of chapter he says, "May I be alone," he says. And that time he's talking about patience, because when you're full of ego, you don't want to practice patience. If you can become, egoless log, and that's then good. Nobody fights with a log. People steps over it, sits on it, cuts it into pieces, so throw it in the water. The log is pretty useful. And so it isn't an obstruction to anybody's. So it's amazing. It's just in Shantideva's mind is very agile. He just tried to all sorts of ways how could conquer the ego and be of unearned by self and others, and then useful, benefit other sentient beings. So this verse number 22 is a very important junction, because that concludes the seven limbs. The limb of dedication concludes there, and from the verse number 23 onwards, then it begins the. After you have done the 7-limb prayer, then you hold the Bodhisattva vows. Then you actually receive the Bodhisattva vows. So that long traditional commentary provides these demarcations, and Pema Chodron doesn't take into notice of the demarcations of this, where what begins, because she wanted to talk to the masses. She wanted to talk to the masses who couldn't be bothered with all these 4 of these, 6 of that. But for the student, I think it's necessary to know the demarcation, which topic is covered by what number of verses, and what is the rationale of the structure and order, and so on, and it becomes very intelligible. Then you can see the Shantideva writing is a meticulous mind. It's just like a master plan for people's self-development, how to develop their good heart. Thank you for being here. So we did the dedication on page 11. O zona indi damje zebanye damne nyebe dana banjene yega naja bala ndrubaye sebe zole ndrowa. By the merit of this, may I attain the state of omniscience, defeat the evil enemies and defilements, may I liberate all sentient beings from the samsara urge, turn away the birth, all this sickness and death. Deja damja renja jendela dage zanandaye gandava yene dogo deja dambeja renja jema mebene yoje. By listening to the excellent prayers of the Mahayana teaching, whatever boundless merit are required, may all sentient beings become precious and stainless vessels to retain the excellent prayers of the Mahayana teaching. Janja Zanja Rinpoche, Maje Vana Jeje, Jeba Nyamba Mebaya, Kone Gondo Bewa. May the supreme precious Bodhisattva take birth in our dance, where it is born, made, and increase abundantly without degeneration.